All right. Speaking of weapons of mass destruction, would you believe the nerve of these people? Look at this. I couldn't believe this when I saw this. So George W. Bush said he's troubled by the capacity of people to spread all kinds of untruth. Motherfucker. You know, when I saw that tweet, when I saw this headline and I read this, all right, I just I spent a whole day just like staring at that. You know, I talk for a living and I didn't know what to say to that because I was so outraged. I'm speechless. He's talking about lies. I don't know any other president. I don't know any other administration that has lied that much. You remember how under Trump, all these newspapers and outlets, they came out with like, oh, now all of a sudden they care about fact checking, right? Not after Iraq. No, now after Trump. You're like, what, you weren't doing journalism before? Nah, they still ain't. And, you know, they were counting all of the lies that Trump had told. You remember that? Where was that when Bush was president, right? He lied about, here's the most obvious one, the weapons of mass destruction, right? He got Colin Powell to go to the United Nations Security Council, and he gave this presentation, like, what was it, like an hour and a half? And he held up this stupid, look at that, what is that, washing detergent? He claimed like, oh my God, these are the chemical and biological weapons that Iraq has the capacity to produce. And, you know, he had these like cartoon trucks. I'm not kidding, like cartoon trucks, right? Hold on, I'm gonna Google this for you, man. Look, he said that they can oh my God, this is just bing. I can't believe this. Look. Yeah, he had look at this. Some guy went and drew up these stupid trucks and said, "Oh my God, Saddam can build these and he can, you know, produce biological and chemical weapons on the fly." And it's completely made up. This is completely made up. Garbage. I mean, who modeled this? Honestly, they started a war over cartoon drawings, and then of course, you know, they lied about the CIA torture. You remember that? You remember that? I mean, of course, the CIA is, you know, a government in of itself, but no, the Bush regime, Cheney, all of them, they covered this up. And the Democrats too, Pelosi knew. She knew about the WMDs as well. All of this. They lied through their goddamn teeth, you know, and then George Bush, he comes and lands his plane on an aircraft carrier 2 months after the invasion of Iraq. So like May 2003, right? And he says, mission accomplished. And there's this like stupid banner behind him. Dude, it's 2021. Iraq is still occupied. Iraq is still occupied by US troops in 2021. What mission did you accomplish? They hadn't even gotten to the point where they were admitting there are no weapons of mass destruction. That took them a few months, right? Even in June of 2003, you still had reporters at the Washington Post and New York Times still saying, look, they're there. We just haven't found them yet because Saddam is so sneaky. He hid them really well. And they hadn't found Saddam either. Saddam, they found him in December, right? So I don't know what this mission accomplished was. But regardless, he lied about that as well, right? And I mean, just the fact that this guy started, you know, he started the presidential surveillance program the day of 9/11, right? Dick Cheney gets his lawyer, David Addington, to come and draw this up. And that becomes the PRISM program, the NSA surveillance program, right? That's the precursor to it, the presidential surveillance program. They lied through their teeth. They conjured this whole war on terror, right? And if you go and you read the AUMF, the authorization for the use of military force, it doesn't even say Al-Qaeda there. It doesn't say Taliban. It doesn't say Afghanistan. I mean, it would still be wrong because it's also lies. No, it's just whoever attacked the United States on 9/11, we're going to go after them, right? And then they put all these people in Guantanamo Bay. They would go and kidnap people all over the world, innocent men. And then they would torture them. And they would take them all the way to Guantanamo Bay and keep them there, and they would lie about them being terrorists, right? I don't know a bigger liar than George Bush. I don't know a bigger liar than this man or his administration. They are really scum of the earth. So look at this, right? He says this on the Today Show, right? says, what's really troubling is how much misinformation there is and the capacity of people to spread all kinds of untruth. I don't know what we're going to do about that. I know what I'm going to do about it. I'm not on Twitter, Facebook, any of that stuff. Oh yeah, because like Colin Powell, he tweeted that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, right? He tweeted about it, and then he just got the United States involved in a never-ending war, right? The dangers of Twitter. Oh my God! Thank God that George Bush has sacrificed his freedoms for us, and he's not going to go on Twitter, right? Thank God for that. Thank God for that. Because you never know what you'll find on Twitter, man. Maybe some yellow cake. So then he talks about the riot on January 6th, the Capitol riot, and he says it made him feel ill. Okay? Can you believe that? So this guy who destroyed Iraq, who destroyed Afghanistan, who destroyed the entirety of the Middle East, just letting creating the Department of Homeland Security, starting this war on terror. I mean, he has the nerve here to come and say that he feels ill about violence. You have a problem with violence now? How do you think Iraqis feel with your tanks marching, rolling through their streets and your soldiers marching through their towns and their cities? You think they don't feel ill? No? Seeing people at Abu Ghraib tortured, I definitely felt ill, right? I mean, physically ill reading about the Mahmoudiyya massacre, Haditha massacre, the Nisour Square massacre, seeing those pictures from Abu Ghraib, the rape, the abuse, the electrocution, the torture. Yeah, I felt ill seeing that, right? So, you want to come here and say that you have some kind of standards now, Mr. George Bush. You have standards now, and you're appalled by violence. Really, I didn't see any of that language after Abu Ghraib, after what you did. I didn't hear you say that you felt ill. Neocon scum. That's what he is. Neocon scum. They all are. And so I'm just going to play this clip. Please forgive me for putting this monster in your face. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's too long. But just look at his goddamn face. I cannot stand him. He really deserves a shoe.
I think we should begin with what is in the news today.
Sure,
there are American cities boarding up. There are schools that are closing. Everyone's awaiting the Derek Chauvin verdict. And I was reading back to what you said after George Floyd died, and it struck me. You said, Laura and I are anguished over the brutal suffocation of George Floyd, disturbed by injustice and fear that will suffocate our country. And then I was just thinking about this moment, this verdict. I mean, what do you think will be the impact on the racial reckoning in this country?
I think the first thing is, Hoda, is that people know that the trial has been conducted fairly and that rule of law reigns supreme in our judiciary. We'll see what a jury of his peers says. I think a lot of people have already made up their mind what the verdict ought to be.
This guy's talking about the rule of law. He's talking about the rule of law. Do you know how much unconstitutional shit this guy has done? Literally, his entire presidency is just one unconstitutional thing after the other, right? The presidential surveillance program, this mass surveillance crap, didn't even tell Congress about it. I'm sure some of them knew. I'm 100% sure some of them knew, right? That was illegal. It's still illegal. They legalized what was illegal afterwards. They waited a bit until they actually got it through Congress. And he's talking about the rule of law now. You may remember, since we're talking about an insurrection, some of you might remember, rumor has it that George Bush himself stole an election. You remember Florida? That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
All I can tell you is that if the trial is not conducted fairly, there is an appeal process. One of the things that we learned after the storming of the Capitol was our institutions held. And one of the institutions that's really important for the confidence of the American people is a fair judicial system. And I think that's what's playing out on our TVs right now.
I do want to talk about the Capitol. We'll talk about that in just a second.
a fair judicial system meant, do you know how hard George Bush and Dick Cheney tried to make sure that people held in Guantanamo Bay were not given due process? This was a real battle. Like, they would not budge on this. They're saying that there's these people that are, some of them are completely innocent. They're not terrorists, and they knew they're not terrorists. They're saying, no, they have no habeas corpus rights. We're not going to give them due process. We don't have to try them in an open court. No rights. No rights. Zero. None. And he's talking about fair trials. Have people lost their minds? How is this guy still on fucking television? How is this guy on television? He should be in the fucking hay. I don't know what to say, man. So sometimes you can't put it into words, right? Sometimes you can't put it into words, and especially with George Bush, I think this should sum it up pretty nicely, right? That this is all that he deserves, a fucking shoe, right? Neocon scum. Neocon scum. That's what he is. So I'm not going to indulge him anymore. We're not going to continue the rest of that clip. It's garbage. I just hate how people rehabilitate this guy, right? They want to come here and convince you that Trump is the worst president in modern history. Yeah, Trump is a piece of crap, but George Bush is like a behemoth. I mean, there's no comparison. You know they're bullshitting because, how can you just omit that? How can you act like his presidency didn't happen? You remember how much they talk about ICE, right? Who created ICE? That's George Bush. Department of Homeland Security? That's George Bush. I mean, the CIA already had torture programs, but he made new ones. Right? Tax cuts, that's George Bush. All these wars, the war on terror, this AOF in 2001 that they've used to bomb 19 different countries, is George Bush. Again, I told you already multiple times, mass surveillance, George Bush. And you want to come here and tell me that Trump is worse than that? No, they're all a continuation of Trump. Obama, Trump, Biden. They're just a continuation of Bush, right? Now, of course, there's some people who say, oh no, they're all a continuation of Reagan. Yes, you have elements of previous administrations that are always there. And Bush is one of those administrations where it's like a milestone of crap, of evil. And, given that you have a one-party system, there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. They just continue what he did, right? They just expand it, they grow it, they maintain it. They're all a continuation of what he started. God, I hate how they try and rehabilitate him. It's really heinous. It's truly heinous. And then you have this thing with Ellen as well, right? And she comes on and puts a picture of the Abu Ghraib. I can't stand them. I really can't.